Michael Gove, does inequality matter?
Yes.
That was quick. Lots of Conservatives would say it doesn't. As long as you tackle absolute poverty, that you give people the opportunity for work, that you ensure that they have subsistence income, it doesn't matter how much the rich earn.
Well, they're wrong. The first thing is to understand that, or I believe that, in Victorian times, a distinction was drawn by some between deserving and undeserving poor, those who were willing to work and those who were shiftless. I think that it's worth drawing a dividing line between the deserving and the undeserving rich. I think that there are people who genuinely work hard, who are creative, who add value to our society. I think that there are people who play the markets, who sit on each other's remuneration committees, and who rig the rules of the free market in their favour, not in favour of the majority of people in this country or in the world. And unless we challenge them with the same vigour that Teddy Roosevelt did at the turn of the century in America, then we risk losing the creativity of the free market economy, because there are individuals who have rigged the rules to their own advantage. There are occasions much more glitzy than this, if you can imagine such a thing. Like the World Economic Forum at Davos, where the world's uber-rich go to preach to us about our failures, both as politicians and as individuals. But so many of them are people who have had every advantage throughout their lives, and who now have power out of the reach of accountability. And they, in many cases, will preach about the vital importance of competitive markets and freeing up labour markets. And yet they themselves live in a bubble where they find that if they do fail, then they're rewarded handsomely, as so many people, not least in financial services, have been for their failure. So it's critical, first of all, that we recognise that there are some people who have power and wealth who don't deserve it and who need to be challenged. The other thing is, it is not a healthy or a humane society where the gap between rich and poor grows so much. A metaphor that was used by my colleague Greg Clark, but first of all coined by my friend Polly Toynbee, is accurate. And that is that society is like a camel train travelling through the desert. I don't want rigid Stalinist North Korean equality. That would be wrong, inhumane, and would require a coercive power on behalf of the state that would be out of kilter with any decent and humane liberal set of values. But I do believe that when those at the top move far too far away from those at the bottom, that is an unhealthy situation. And organisations from the Royal Navy to the John Lewis Partnership that insist that there's a relationship between those who are paid the least and those who are paid the most in their organisation are healthier organisations for it. And I absolutely believe that if you turn your conception of what a good society is into an atomised meritocratic race in which you simply allow people to roll the dice and to take whatever advantages accrue as a result of that, then what you do is you undermine the bonds that make us human and that raise us above the level of the Darwinian competition that exists in nature. We are better than that. We have souls for a reason. We should be our brother's keepers. We should think that our society is better when our society is more equal, more just and more fair.
Imagine for a moment, Saz, as your business secretary, with a picture of Margaret Thatcher on your wall. What would you think of a Secretary of State for Justice in the Cabinet talking about the failures of capitalism, talking about the need for greater equality, and quoting Polly Toynbee?
Well, it's the last bit it's the last bit that's got me really worried. That's it. But actually, I'd come back to something I said at the start about, and that was capitalism. You see, there's no better system than capitalism for lifting people out of poverty. If there is, I haven't heard of it yet. But I also made the point, and I make it every time when I talk about it, it has its challenges. It doesn't answer all society's problems. But if you accept that capitalism is the best way to lift people's living standards and lift them out of poverty, then you also have to accept it's a system that does produce people that make a lot of money, as well as lifting many others out of poverty. And if those people are people like, if they're Bill Gates or Dyson or someone who invented something, they worked really hard, or others, then they deserve that money. I don't have a problem with that. And they can have as much of it as they want. But what I would be concerned about in trying to sort of create some sort of utopia or something where everyone's more equal, and if you're trying to do that by trying to bring down the people that are the wealth creators, you will hurt everyone, the very people that you're trying to help. So to me, what matters a lot more is, I guess, equality of opportunity. Let's make sure that we have a society that you can be the son of a bus driver and become a Secretary of State for Business, right? That you can, that you can have nothing and you can become one of the richest men or women in the world. Let's create that opportunity society, and I think it is happening in Britain. We've got a long way to go, but that to me is more important.
Ian or Ruth, would either of you answer the question, does inequality matter, with no?
No.
No, I wouldn't. But I will say one thing, though. It's quite interesting. The first thing I'd say is, in agreeing with Michael, I think the problem here is that nobody, I think, in their right mind, minds somebody who's gone out and risked everything, built a business, spread work, spread jobs, etc., and made, therefore, a big success of their life, and they take the rewards of that. What I think was the real problem in the last few years was that we grew a kind of financial sector that, to some degree, abused its own position. And the problem was that these are the same people that lectured everybody about taking the rough as well as the smooth. You remember, setting up a business, if you don't succeed, then it's hard luck, we're going to take this stuff off you, you didn't pay your money back, it's over, that's what running a business is like. And as soon as they got into trouble during the crash, it was straight back to government, government will bail you out. So the problem became an excess in a misunderstanding about what real wealth creation is, and wealth creation should be about spreading opportunity, which is exactly what Sajid has just said. It's about the opportunity that people get. And I just want to add one element to that. So there is a coalescence between what they've all said. The one bit is, we've slightly forgotten here that there is a group of people that is often shut out from that process. And I'm talking genuinely about people with disabilities. And the reason why I just raise it right now is because although now we've managed to get more people with disabilities into work, there is still a complete failure amongst many British companies to recognise that actually having someone with disabilities work for you is actually a bonus. It is not a negative. In other words, your company is more cohesive, as we've discovered. People with disabilities work very hard, they're very loyal, and they do an incredible job. And what instead companies think of them as being a problem, they're not. So I would really make a plea here for companies to stop and ask themselves a question: why are we not employing more people with disabilities, mental or physical disabilities? And if we could reach the point where we equalize those employment rates, that is real equality of opportunity, and I'm with Sajid.
In terms of the bigotries you were talking about earlier, bigotry towards disabled people is probably one of the biggest. What's your answer to the inequality question?
My answer to the inequality one is, yes, I think it does matter, and I think that having a camel train that's too far apart frays society and frays communities and sets communities against each other. But the big issue for me that's more important about inequality as the Gini coefficient that's measurable is actually the inequality of opportunity. And we have to recognise, and particularly our party has to recognise, that we don't all start on the starting grid at the same point. And sometimes we're too blithe about saying that if you work hard, you'll get on and you'll do great and blah, blah, blah. And actually, at the moment in our country, you are 35% more likely to be a high earner if you have a low IQ but are from a wealthy family than if you have a high IQ and are from a poorer family. The biggest inequality of opportunity that we have right now is that we don't, it is still how rich your parents are that is a bigger indicator of how well you'll do in life than how smart you are or how hardworking or anything else. And that's something that we have to be better at tackling, because we've all heard it, I'm sure I've said it myself at some times, talking about this idea that anybody can go out and do everything and they can be a world beater and they can do all of these things. And actually, do you know what? We don't all have the same advantages to start with, and we as a party have to be better at recognising that, because I think sometimes we're far too blithe about it.